Welcome back to High Tech, the ultimate destination for your daily tech fix. We've got an exciting comparison lineup of DJI Air 3 versus DJI Mavic 3 Pro that will leave you in awe. But before we dive into the tech goodness, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest and greatest in the world of technology. Let's not waste any time. Buckle up as we explore the coolest, most innovative gadgets hitting the shelves today. Don't forget to check out the product links in the description below each video for easy access to purchase your favorite tech products. So, I've taken a lot of time over the past couple of months to fly both the DJI Mavic 3 Pro and the DJI Air 3 to try to figure out which one is better, considering everything: the camera, the airframe, the feature set, the price point. I've concluded that you really can't go wrong buying either of these drones, which makes this comparison video very difficult to make. What I find interesting is that the Air 3 helps us imagine what a potential DJI Mavic 4 could look like. I know it probably sounds crazy discussing a potential new drone right off the bat, but seriously, some things about this drone give us a good understanding of what to expect potentially. Comparing the DJI Air 3 and Mavic 3 Pro. The first thing is the size. The DJI Air 3 is not much smaller than the Mavic 3's airframe, which is surprising considering this is DJI's mid-tier entry in their foldable drone lineup. This is definitely the biggest Air they've released yet. Just look at the size difference between the very first DJI Mavic Air and now the new DJI Air 3. This is all for the better, as this drone has become far more capable with a better camera, better battery life, and better flight performance. But for all these improvements to happen, the drone size needed to be larger. So now that the size between these two drones is fairly similar, I'd imagine that a next-generation Mavic, whatever it might be called, let's say a DJI Mavic 4 for the sake of this video, would need to be larger, right? To accommodate a better camera, better performance, better specs, better flight time, and everything else that would come as a result of having a generally larger drone. Another area where big improvements must be made is the camera, because the Air 3 is putting some serious pressure on the Mavic 3 Pro with a similar dual-camera design. There are even some areas where the Air 3 surpasses the Mavic 3, like its transmission system and flight performance. This is typical of a drone release cycle, or really any technology release cycle, for that matter. Whenever the higher-end offering, in this case, the Mavic 3 is older than the newer offering that falls lower in the lineup, which in this case is the Air 3, there's bound to be areas where the lower-end offering has improved upon, because technology has gotten better over time since that higher-end offering has come out, thus putting pressure on the higher-end option. The Air 3 was the first drone from DJI to incorporate their new 04 transmission system, which gives you a ton of range, and I would know. I pushed this thing to over 12 miles out in the salt flats. But that maximum range really isn't what we're worried about. It might be a nice marketing tactic to say, hey, this drone can fly 15 miles or 18 miles or however far you want to say that it can fly, but really, what's important is how strong that signal is at close distances, and the Air 3 has gotten a massive upgrade over the Mavic 3 because of the 4 antennas built in. So now, with 04, the new protocol calls for 4 antennas on the drone and 6 antennas on the remote controller, compared to the 2 antennas in 03 on the Mavic 3 and the 4 antennas in the remote controller. So, you have more antennas, giving you a much better signal at closer distances. The flight performance on the Air 3 also makes the Mavic 3 feel like a kid's toy, and that isn't an exaggeration. Whenever I jump between drones, I'm always amazed at how quick the Air 3 is. The horizontal speed is the same between the DJI Mavic 3 and the Air 3, but the vertical speed is ridiculously fast. Like, you can dive down to the ground or ascend at such a quicker pace, making this drone feel so much more powerful. So, drone-wise, in terms of the actual aircraft itself, the Air 3 beats out the Mavic 3 in a lot of categories. It's even, but the Air 3 surpasses what the Mavic 3 can do in certain areas. There are really only two differences from a hardware standpoint about the Mavic 3 that are worth pointing out. So, with that said, I think that the Air 3 is the clear winner from an aircraft standpoint. I think it's kind of surprising that DJI came out with the Air 3 as their mid-tier drone offering. It's a fraction of the cost of the Mavic 3, and they made it better in almost every regard. The flight performance, the transmission, the flight characteristics, the flight time, literally everything has been improved, which again is surprising. But that is only half the story, as now we're going to move into where I believe the Mavic 3 Pro pulls ahead with the lead, and that is the camera, where it pretty much beats out the Air 3 in every regard. DJI Mavic 3 Pro cameras have the upper hand. Okay, so just like we did with the specs for the drone itself, let's first compare these two cameras pound for pound. There are a lot of specs on this sheet that are very similar, like image resolution and frame rate options, amongst a few other things. But the main difference is the size of the sensor. The 4.3 camera is really what separates the Mavic 3 series in general, putting it in a class of its own. Like, there are not many other drones, let alone full foldable ones, rocking a sensor this big. The Air 3 does, however, have a few tricks up its sleeve, like the 48-megapixel main camera using the quad-Bayer sensor. So, the photos are technically captured in a higher resolution than what you would get on any of the Mavic 3 drones. But the technology used to achieve this doesn't beat out the true 20-megapixel 4.3 sensor on the Mavic 3. Okay, so just like we did with the specs for the drone itself, let's first compare these two cameras pound for pound. There are a lot of specs on this sheet that are very similar, like image resolution and frame rate options, amongst a few other things. But the main difference is the size of the sensor. The 4.3 camera is really what separates the Mavic 3 series in general, putting it in a class of its own. Like, there are not many other drones, let alone full foldable ones, rocking a sensor this big. The Air 3 does, however, have a few tricks up its sleeve, like the 48-megapixel main camera using the quad-Bayer sensor. So, the photos are technically captured in a higher resolution than what you would get on any of the Mavic 3 drones. But the technology used to achieve this doesn't beat out the true 20-megapixel 4.3 sensor on the Mavic 3. The Air 3's camera is still phenomenal, don't get me wrong. There was a period of time when the Mavic 3 Pro sat on the shelf in my studio while the Air 3 got all of the love, and in that time, I never felt like I was wishing that I had the Mavic 3 Pro instead. This is that vacuum effect that I always talk about, though. By itself, the Air looks great, but up against the drone like the Mavic 3, you begin to see why this is a more expensive option because the camera is just straight up nasty. Now, let's discuss the other cameras. Because that's a big thing that makes these drones so good. I love the ability to switch over to the 70mm focal length with the press of a button, and having that compression on a drone is a serious game changer. I love using it to get a different feel in the tracking landscape and cityscape shots that I'm able to get. Fun fact, the 70mm medium telecamera is the same between both of these drones, with the same sensor and specs. So, really, the only difference in camera is the main sensor. We do, however, have to address the elephant in the room, and that is the triple camera setup on the Mavic 3 Pro, adding the telecamera, which I have mixed feelings about. So, this gives you a whopping 166mm equivalent focal length, which is just insane to use on a drone. Now, I don't shoot much video with it because it's kind of difficult to keep stable. With this tight of a field of view, any minor movement is amplified on the drone, especially in windy conditions. I do, however, love using it for photography. It allows for such unique angles and is actually a ton of fun to shoot with. Again, it's not something that I'm going to use every single day, but I'm happy that I have it, and it's another reason why I reach for my Mavic 3 Pro, usually over the Air 3. Wrapping up the comparison. Now, the final thing I'd love to discuss here in my videos is the feature set between drones and compare them. But really, the feature set between these drones is exactly identical. They both have waypoints, they both have cruise control, they both have the same active track and autonomous flight modes. The only thing that the Mavic 3 series has that I find to be an absolute game-changing feature is Vision Assist. This is a fairly new feature that allows you to actually see through the obstacle avoidance cameras. This is really helpful because when I'm tracking beside an object or doing an orbit with my camera focused on a subject that is not in the direction my drone is moving, I can use that little window in the bottom left corner to see what is directly beside my drone. This has seriously changed the way that I capture shots as I feel way more comfortable when flying laterally. So, aircraft-wise, the Air 3 is the winner, camera-wise, the Mavic 3 Pro is the winner. So, in my opinion, this comparison comes to a draw, which makes it so difficult to compare these drones. I guess my advice to you, if you're trying to figure out which of these is right for you, if you really care about the performance of your drone, go with the Air 3. But if you think that camera quality is your utmost important thing, then go with the Mavic 3 Pro because it does have the better camera system overall. I am just so excited about the release of the Air 3 because it pushes so hard on the Mavic 3's heels that the Mavic 4 or whatever the next Mavic drone is needs to be something really special to stand out. Who knows when we'll see it? I mean, this drone is coming up on about 2 years old, so maybe a couple of months from now, maybe a year from now. Who knows with DJI's wacky release cycles? But nonetheless, this is a great time to be a drone flyer because we have so many great options, not only the Mavic 3 Pro and the Air 3, but the Mini 4 Pro is also a great option. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And that wraps up today's journey through the world of tech wonders on high-tech. If you enjoyed this video and discovered some must-have gadgets, give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss our daily dive into the latest and greatest in technology.